Alrighty, as soon as you guys are ready, let's go ahead and get started again.
We have a question.
Okay.
From online.
Hey, there's a young man by the name of Sean online. I was reading through some of the chat. He's hilariously funny. He was asking all kinds of stuff, and like, I must have said Amigo money or something like that, and I read one of his comments on the chat box was, Amigo money is only legal tender in certain places. But,
I knew you'd like that one.
Yeah, anyway,
I told him I'd tell you.
Kind of funny stuff. Awesome. What was the question, Shannon?
It's from Joe.
Okay.
So we said on this similar topic that we were talking about before break, he had spoken with another Adilas user a couple weeks ago, and he was having difficulty with adjusting specific cogs when he bought bowling balls, and a sale was offered by the vendor. So for an example, 5 for the price of 4. Can this be adjusted in the system?
Okay, so basically what was going on there is I would use the advanced PO line item type deal and basically say, what's my known value, and then what is my total quantity, and then make the system kind of do the math and force it in that way. I know the question that he's also asking, and there's a guy by the name of Michael Weber who works out in Alabama, and he does tons and tons of bowling pro shops, and he's very, very sharp. And what they have in their industry is often the bowling balls, they buy them for sales, and then they have other ones that are at full price. And so what they do is they have some that are super, super low cost and some that are full value. And it happens a lot, like a lot. So what we're doing is we're actually working on a thing called internal cost corrections, which basically he wants to run on an average cost, but you still have the same problems that you have with doing an actual costing method. So basically, this is kind of long story short. What our plan is to actually help companies run on an actual physical live cost by doing what's called an internal cost correction. So I know it's a little bit deeper, but basically what ends up happening is that you know how many you came in. You also know how many you sold from a certain location. And what you do is you say, how many do I have in? What's the total dollar value? And how much the total dollar value that's going out? And then instead of averaging it, because then you don't really even know where things are at because it's kind of a mystery thing, you leave things as they really were, but then you actually adjust it so that it will be like, oh, I can perfectly match up to this particular piece of the puzzle. We're going to call it internal cost corrections. It's a future project that will be done by Adilas, but it'll be pretty cool as far as how it works. Like, without getting super detailed, you can't have a zero quantity and take it times a cost or a price to actually update your cost of goods, okay? 0 times anything is 0. But you can go like this. I have a -1 at this at a 0 cost and a +1 at this. If you add the negative and the positive together, it creates a 0, and then you can adjust the cost. So it's smoke and mirrors in a way, but basically it's a cost adjustment type thing, especially if people are ranging all over the place. They're going, they bought 10 bowling balls at a certain part, and then 5 of them were at 0. Like, instead of just doing an average cost, like what happens with his industry is they have 30 locations. So they'll buy, and they get a killer deal, and then they spread it to the different locations. But all of a sudden, because you bought and sold at such different random pieces, it kind of starts spreading some randomness around just as far as that goes. So basically, the solution we have is called internal cost corrections, and it's coming, but it's not currently working yet. So I don't know if that answered the question, but that's what I would get for the answer. It does get a little tricky when you start getting crazy inventories. Can you imagine 30-plus locations and kind of moving inventory all around? And they do a great job. Basically, they have a warehouse, and then what it is as they need different products, the warehouse stores it all. That's almost all the shipments come directly to the warehouse, and then they use transfer invoices to move stuff around to the different pieces so that they know who has what quantities. When they click on usage, instead of just saying, hey, I've got this many, it's like, I've got this many in these locations. And if you wanted to drill down into it, you could actually get deeper into one location and see its usage. But they kind of see it in a general locational-based model. So when you deal with locations, what you're doing is you're virtually stacking models. If this is a single model, imagine if you had this thing multiplied times 30, okay? So instead of looking at it flat, Imagine if it actually had some three-dimensional depth to it. That's kind of what happens when you get locations. You start stacking depths, okay? So anyway, if you can ask him if that answered his question, that'd be great. But
he said thank you.
Currently, I would call it internal cost corrections, and it is currently under construction / in the planning mode. So awesome. Okay, any other comments that we had during break? I know that we were talking with Paul, and he was in construction, and he wanted to see a little site. And so he's like, I wanted to ask some stuff, but we're kind of in this little doing a nursery type interface type thing, and he wanted to ask some stuff. So Paul, can I turn it over to you for a second and just ask some questions, and then we'll kind of roll it. Like, we may end up logging out of this company and actually go into a different company to kind of show you.
Well, I wanted to see how, I know that we're dealing with the nursery, but I wanted to see how it would react to a construction if you were to build a whole building, and how using the items that we're using and the flex grid that you're talking about, and you have two customers that are basically the same, and how to tie those people into one another so you could give, you did this home, and this customer is wanting the same thing with just additional pieces, how you could give them a quote that's based on the square footage of that, and how that flex grid would work between the two.
Okay, great. And what we did is we talked about a couple different options. One, are we worried about the quoting and invoicing process? Or are we more worried about the what do I have into this project and what is my job cost entail? Like, they're almost two separate things in a way.
What I have into it and the job cost.
Okay, great. I am going to go ahead and switch companies, okay? And I'm going to take you into one. This is a company that, oh, I still had a cart. Let me view it. I don't think it was anything important. Okay, we'll just hit clear. I was trying to log out, and it basically was like, you can't log out yet. You still have an open cart. Okay, I'll log out. I'll log back in. Okay, we're going to go to one called Sueño del Mar. Okay, this one right here was actually a company that's out of Belize, so it was not on American soil. But what they were doing is they had a huge project that was multi-million-dollar project, and this actually, Adilas as a company was created in 2008. We've been building on it since 2001, but actually Adilas itself became a company in 2008. And Steve, he loves to scuba dive, and he has a lot of different connections and different things like this. So he actually knew a person that was working on this project. He's like, you know what, we kind of just do trailers and vehicles and stuff like that, but we could probably help you out. And so I want to show you just a little bit about what this company did to use this particular product. Okay, the reason I'm able to show you this right here is this company actually ended up, long story short, 2008, they hit major rough financial different things, and they were basically trying to fund this whole project through timeshares and that type of stuff, and everybody just totally closed their wallets completely, and the bank ended up taking this project over, and so they are actually no longer one of our customers, but this is from some data back in 2008, but I want to show you some of the cool stuff. Yes?
Hey, what's kind of cool about this is kind of as a sales team, we talked about that and we tend to use it as a story. How do we begin? What do we do? Where do we come? And, you know, what's our outcome right now and how we kind of evolved into Adilas.biz instead of just a independent proprietary system that you and Steve built.
Correct. So one of the cool things is each customer that we kind of added when we first started, when we started Adilas in 2008, there was, Adilas isn't even the first corporation in the system. There was actually 20 some odd corporations that were inside of Adilas using Adilas because they wanted to kind of be part of the little project / program before we even actually created the Adilas itself. They were actually running under another name called the Morningstar System because we were created from the Morningstar Automotive Group, both in Colorado and in Texas. But what I want to show you right here on this right here is we're going to go to the history homepage, and just to kind of give you an idea of the breadth of this particular corporation and what they did, I'm going to kind of expand this custom date range right here. And I'm going to go from 1/1 of 08 until now. And so that basically let's go to 10/23 of 13. Okay, this might take just a second to run this report, but it'll kind of give you an idea of what these guys actually did internally. So what they did was they used stock units, okay? So you'll see a number of the values that are way up in the millions, but what happened was basically, if I were to show you some of these invoices, they did a number of internal invoices. So what they did was they had products. So imagine something like this. They had a whole bunch of products that were brought in on a barge for a construction project. What they did is they used stock units. I'm going to go ahead and grab a marker for just a second. So they had tons and tons of inventory here, okay? And they had tons and tons of different little projects that they actually put into little stock units, makes and models, and they actually did pools and walkways and roofs and houses. Like, they wanted to know exactly what they had in each one of these different little pieces of the puzzle. They also had multiple locations, so the multiple locations were kind of tied to the different areas. So what they did is, instead of saying location way over here in a different state and location way over here, they're like, this whole location is my villas. This whole location is my recreation or my pool. This is my restaurant or whatever. Like, that's how they set it up. And then they set stock units inside of that to be the different pieces of the puzzle. Okay? So they kind of use a little combination of these different pieces. And then they used internal invoices to grab items from here and apply them to here. Okay? Which basically, it's kind of like it's moving out of here. They never had somebody to come up and say, hey, I need 3 bars of rebarb. You know, basically what they did is they said, I need 3 bars of rebarb, and it needs to go to stock number 12. Okay, so they were internally moving things and applying these different pieces, including labor, including how many mason hours, how many, you know, different loads of gravel, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to kind of take you in and show you this, but I just wanted to kind of prep it with a little light drawing there. Okay, so if you come down in here, they did tons and tons of different things to the different pieces of the puzzle. I just wanted to kind of show you like tons and tons of POs that they brought in, close to 1,000 different POs. Those are different barges or different, this is like, because it was on the island, there really wasn't a store on the island. Everything had to be shipped in, and then they basically stocked everything in and kind of went from there. As far as their items and the different pieces that they have, they had about 4,000 different items that were in their little shed that they were applying to different pieces. So just to kind of give you an idea of some of what the place looked like, it's a nice place. It's a really nice place. But they have all sorts of different stuff, whether it was during the construction, you know, whatever the different parts of the puzzle might be. But just this might kind of give you an idea of what they were doing. I'm just going to jump into a random page here just so you can kind of see. Oh, there's Steve working with one of the guys in Belize. So it's just kind of funny. But like, they literally took tons of pictures of the different pieces of the puzzle, and then as they were in those things, like say for instance right here, this one, if I actually went into this particular gallery, you could actually see that this is what they put in for this particular one. So this was a 2-bedroom villa with two baths. Okay, this is currently what we would call the customer mode. So we haven't talked about this, but we're currently in a stock number. See how that number right there is 25? If I go like this, and I go like, just for example, stock unit, and say I went, show me what 27 would be. Okay, so here's number 27, and this one actually had a little plan, and then kind of, it was a nice place. It was a really, really nice place. One of the cool things about this is if you switch modes, you go from customer mode to the other mode, you basically can kind of start seeing what some of the costs and prices were and what sort of details they actually did to these different pieces of the puzzle. Okay, so in 2008, they had a number of different little invoices that were applied to the different things. If you wanted to see it in detail, you could click specifically on an invoice, and it would physically show you as far as what's going on to that particular. This is the customer for this particular invoice. It's a stock unit, okay? So that's why it was internally applied. If you wanted to see all of this in detail, you could literally say, show me what we've got. And you basically come down. Here's some stainless steel. Here's some anchors. Here's some different PVC anchors, you know, like pipes and elbows. And here's the one that we just looked at, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Like they basically came through here and said, how much are they grabbing? What's going on? You know, et cetera, et cetera. They detailed this out. Oh, we had 0.25 of some plumber hours, and we had a little bit of some mason hours. This is just this particular one. I'm going to take you back to stock unit number 25 that we were looking at. It had a whole bunch of pictures. I don't know what it has as far as its details. But if we switch modes again, once again, going from the customer-friendly mode to this one. So they had quite a few different little pieces that they added. Once again, I could just flip in here, and clear down to sandpaper and drywall screws and you name it. Like
Trash bags.
yeah, like whatever they did, basically what they did is the people would kind of come to the main compound. It was a locked, gated area. Hey, I need this, where's it going? And then they would assign it to the stock unit. So that it automatically attributed those different little pieces of the puzzle to the different things. And so just by way of being fun, watch this. I'm going to just go to the stock unit homepage. We haven't really played here, but this is where Adilas grew up from, was stock units, which are big ticket items. Let's go to landscape, just for fun. And here's the sprinkler system. Should we check that one out for just a second?
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it has a ton of pictures on it, but let's go ahead and switch modes on this guy and see what it has. Okay, they did tons of work on the sprinkler system, thousands of dollars at different times. Individually, once again, I could go in and click on those individual invoices, or once again, I could pop it out and say, show me what we did on this guy, okay? This is probably tons of PVC and probably a little bit of, but basically, like, you have a date when it happened, what's going on, who did what. Okay, here's a bunch of their hours that they were billing out to the different little mason levels at different $65 an hour, $55 an hour, $75 an hour. They were attributing cost. And these costs, what they do is they end up kind of, this $2,300 right here that was basically a labor cost, if I hit back one time, what it does is it kind of starts coming into this little area right here, which builds up the cost, and then eventually when they finally sell it, they were going to actually attribute a price so they could figure out what the total, they were using this for kind of a job costing type system. But like, at any point in time, say we wanted to say, hey, what do they have underneath their parts, and say you wanted to see what they had under PVC, it'll come back and says, oh, I got 400 different items that matched PVC. And if I wanted it specific a little bit more, say I want PVC male. Okay, I could either go up here to the quick search or right here. It doesn't make a bit of difference. So I only have 21 things that were the PVC male versus PVC female type fitting.
If someone here in the United States said, I want a resort, this is what I want it to look like, we can flex grid that in to make.
Okay, so I think it's important, and I know you're like, oh wow, the flex grid, and it sounds really cool, and it really is. So like, what happens with the flex grid here, and we'll actually get into this a little bit deeper, but the flex grid didn't even exist when these guys were doing this particular project.
Okay.
The flex grid, it's this little tunnel right here, okay? So what it allows you to do is you have three basic things that it can do. One, it can connect. So this little piece right here, you have to have a host, okay? So say, for instance, say it was a stock unit right here, and you wanted to connect it to another stock unit or another customer that wanted to see something that you were building for somebody else. What you could do is this little stock unit right here, say that we have house A, okay? And potentially we're going to build house B, but we have customer, let's call it P and Q, okay? So the flex grid, what it could do is technically one customer was probably attached already through an invoice. One invoice said, I'll be connected here and I'll be connected here. And that's just a normal connection through the invoice, okay?
Okay.
But you're like, oh my goodness, this customer wants to be able to see either this invoice or this physical buildup of what happens. The flex grid, I'm going to switch markers because my one isn't quite big enough. I'm just going to switch to a pen, okay? So watch this. The flex grid, what you do is you would add one piece of flex grid to this little customer that says, oh, by the way, tie yourself to this little invoice or tie yourself to this little stock unit here, even though that they're technically not really connected, but it's a virtual buddy system. It's one of the ways that you can do it, okay? That's what the flex grid allows you to do. That's just one little scenario. You could add another little piece of flex grid like, hey, just so you know, I'm also connected to this customer, and I also want to connect down to this other stock unit that's completely separate. These are non-traditional links, okay? So the traditional link was invoice is connected to customer, and then an invoice was holding the stock unit. That's the normal thing. But if we need to kind of tweak it out or make anything happen, we could use the flex grid tie-ins to make that kind of stuff happen. So it's good stuff. Awesome. What we're going to do right here is, did you guys want to see anything else in this kind of the Belize one where they were doing some different pieces of the puzzle?
Yes.
Okay, so
Can I just ask?
yes, go ahead.
So Brian's temporary inventory, Was that an internal?
Okay, so what happened is they got a whole bunch of stuff that was already there when they existed. So they're like, oh my goodness, what about all of this cement bags and this and this and this?
Oh,
Like, they had no clue where it came from. It was a giant stockpile of randomness, okay?
okay.
So what they did was they created a vendor called Byron's Temporary Inventory, and they basically inventoried everything that was in there and stuck it in.
Okay.
Okay, no problem, no
See you
problem.
guys tomorrow.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Santiago. Appreciate it. So that's what Byron's Temporary Inventory was. It was kind of the conglomerate of all of the different pieces that
That
they
already
didn't
existed.
have a PO on, okay?
Okay.
So basically they created one giant PO and was like, I've got 14 of these, 10 of these, 10 of these, 10 of these, and I'll just start using them, but like I don't know where they came from, or like basically it was kind of water that had gone under the bridge and accumulated, and they just wanted to kind of start pulling out of that so that they actually knew how many of those pieces they had.
They assign a value to them, or put them in a zero and just track?
I don't know. I would have to actually take a look at that. Okay, so let's actually take a look at this one right here, a usage, and it looks to me like the PO where it came in on looks like they did actually assign a small cost to like what the basic cost was. That way, as it got applied to the different invoices, it would pull that cost through. What they probably did is, as far as like, they basically said, this elbow, how much would it cost me new? Okay, boom, let's put a cost of $2.32 on it. Then what they would do is on the accounting side to that, if they even went out that far, they would basically say, here's my giant PO that has all of my temporary inventory that I got from Joe Blow, wherever, maybe it's been here for 10 years, okay? This is my inventory cost, and I'm going to basically say this PO, instead of actually paying that up, I'm going to force it. And so then basically my inventory count would start off right here, okay? But I don't technically owe anybody for it. And so like basically they would kind of force some of the pieces through to get that ball started.
Well, if it was in a stockyard, you get insurance on that, you do need a cost value for every item in there. So if something did get stolen or whatever, they could say this part got stolen, well, is there a cost value? Yes, and they have it. And
Correct, and I don't even know, like Steve basically did this entire setup and, you know, went did some scuba diving and played in the palapa and all that kind of fun stuff. But it was basically, once they got these guys trained, they just kind of did this and just did it and did it and did it and did it. And it just kind of shows you a different side of Adilas that you normally don't see when we're talking about selling little plants or seeds or root beers or anything like this. Like this is a big ticket item that can hold different pieces of the puzzle. Okay.
So
You guys
each
have-
one
yes.
of their stock units were a particular villa they were building.
Correct, correct. And so basically right here, let's go just to the stock unit homepage for just a minute.
So they broke it down by room and then said this room is stock unit number 1, this room 2 bedrooms, stock unit number 2, and then they broke down all the parts there.
Okay, so what they did was like kind of like this. Here's their locations. They broke it down into buildings and construction, resort, and whatever. So let's just go to a building randomly. How about number 10? Okay, and I'm just going to say, go get me everything under building number 10. Okay, so we have the foundation, we have the roof, we have, and a couple different pieces of the villa. Probably looks to me like villa A, B, C, and D. So what they did is they broke the whole thing into multiple pieces. Okay, but if you wanted to go see one of the pieces, you want to check out the roof or the foundation, or what do you want to check out?
The roof.
Okay, so we'll go to the roof. It's number 53, so it technically has a number. Okay, and so in here, it looks like $37,000 actually went in towards different pieces of the puzzle that they did on work towards the roof. Okay, so then if you wanted to, once again, the same basic thing, you jump in here. Looks to me like we've got brackets and gutter stuff, and looks like they actually had a bunch of blades. Like they're billing everything out to the different little units and stuff.
That's amazing.
Glue, like some foam and brushes, and this is all dealing with roof stuff. And so everything that went to the roof is right here. What they were able to do is virtually, because this was tied to a location, I'm just going to hit back. So virtually because this was tied to a location, building number 10, and then the roof on that building, what they could do is they could actually run some financials and say, go show me exactly what building number 10 looks like. So I'm going to just jump in there for a second. Okay, so watch this. So home, we're going to go to a totally different spot, they would go to the P&L, the income statement, they would hit go, and instead of doing it right here, they would probably go to the advanced settings on some of this, and they would deselect everything and say, I just want building number 10, and we're going way back to 2008, 1/1 of 08, and then they would kind of say, what else did I want to do or click or this or that, and let's go ahead and show the, I can't remember, they had to flip a little thing right here. I'm going to say full basis, okay? And let's go ahead and go expand that out and show it. Check your date range. Okay, no problem. It says, hey, you can't go that long for the income statement. So we'll just go to 12/31/08. We'll come down. We just have building 10 selected. And repairs, use with the location lookup. That's the piece that I forgot as well. So because they were running a slightly special, they wanted to know exactly for building 10 what was my revenue and what was my exact cost, and then what were all the different little pieces of the puzzle that went into it, okay? So this is specific to that building as far as an exact breakdown of what actually happened. It looks like they even had some expenses that went out to this building as well. So we can take a look at it. So basically, as it came down, these are things that are applied to those physical stock units. The roof, the foundation, apartment 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like, these are all the different little pieces of the puzzle. So as you came down through here, you could be like, oh, cement, what did they have here? Brrr, here's the unit 353, that was the floor. The 4, 2, like, these are all the different times that cement was actually applied to these different pieces, okay? Or you come back here, and you come down, and you're like, decor, what do we have? If you needed to go in deeper, you could be like, I got $13,000 in decor for this one building. You can click on it. Okay, what have I got? Which one do I want to see? You know, like if you wanted to see a certain thing, you just go in deeper. You'd be like, cool, what have we got right here on number 2? Okay, so it looks to me like,
Runs.
yeah, whatever, you got curtain rods and, you know, whatever. So, like, I don't know what all these pieces are, but what it is it's details all stacked together, and then eventually we'll pull back and we say, cool, we can show you some costing on this and some job costing. Come down, electrical. These are their different categories that they created. Remember how we created seeds and plants and starter kits and like just generic little pieces? They created categories called these different little pieces of the puzzle. Janitorial, labor, okay? This looks like even some potential outside labor sources that were used, and then build out. Like, I don't know exactly what they did. Paint, plumbing, roofing, smallware, tile, tools, woodwork, etc., etc. Then you can come down into the cost. What was the cost of those different pieces of the puzzle? Basically, a mirror image map, if you will, of these different pieces. Then way down here at the bottom, they even have some expenses as far as like telephone and licensing fees, and these were things that were actually applied. So this is $100 telephone fee that was actually applied. If I look here for a stock unit, oh, looks like it was actually split. Okay, as an 8% split towards all of the different little the different things. But they were just doing a bunch of different little pieces of the puzzle there. So, anyway, there's tons of information in here. It's just kind of a fun little site to kind of like, whoa, that's totally different.